Welcome back to iSober, a platform where we freely share our experience, strength, and hope. Our goal is to build a community of recovery, support those who may still be struggling, and remind everyone that no one has to walk in this journey alone. Today we are honored to welcome a special guest joining us from Kentucky. Rhonda has graciously agreed to share her story of recovery, the challenges she has overcome, the lessons she's learned, and the hope she has found along the way. Rhonda, thank you so much for being here, for your willingness to share this experience with us. We believe your story has power to inspire someone who is listening today to search for a better way of life. Everyone, please help us welcome Rhonda from Kentucky.
Okay, thank you. My name's Rhonda, and I'm an addict. First, I'd like to start off with my new clean date, which is March the 30th. No, yeah, that's right. March the 30th of 2026.
Oh wow,
My
that's
clean
amazing.
date, yes, my clean date before that was March the 3rd of 2011. So I was able to accumulate 15 years
That is
clean at
that is
one
awesome.
time.
That is
Ye-
absolutely awesome.
yes. And I am a proud member of Narcotics Anonymous. That is the fellowship that I choose to go to. And I'd just like to start a little bit about my background and where I started. And then I'll kind of go through a little bit of the craziness and then where I've ended. So, my home life as a child, I come from a broken home. Mother and father divorced when I was around 10 or 11. And I really feel like my whole life I had been searching for that father figure. And so when that happened, my life, I could tell, began to spiral. I started using at the age of about 12 or 13. It started off with alcohol, and then from there, around 14, I tried marijuana for the first time. And that was pretty much about it. I remember having a car accident when I was 16, and that was when I first got introduced to opiates.
Oh
And
wow.
at that point,
Wow.
yeah, at
Yeah,
that point there,
that's an
that's
intense
very.
way to get introduced into that.
Yes, and so I remember drinking the night that I got the medication with the opiates, not realizing that mixing the two, what type of effect that was going to have on me. And before I knew it, they were all gone within the same night. So how I survived that, I don't know, because that is very dangerous. So, but that's how I got introduced to that. And I ended up eventually, and my whole life pretty much consists of a lot of relationships, abusive relationships. There was a lot of physical abuse, a lot of verbal, mental, emotional. And I really feel that it was that I was searching for that father figure and that protector. And just always got involved with the wrong men due to the cycle of addiction. You know, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was always about what could benefit me and what I could get out of the relationship when it comes to my addiction. And so I ended up at 15 in a relationship with a 22-year-old. Got pregnant at 17, had my first child at 18. I was very artistic in school. Um, I did a lot of painting, drawing, sculpting. Um, I actually had I had scholarship offers to go to college, and I dropped out of high school when I was 17, April of my junior year. Why I didn't just go ahead and go to May and complete the junior year, I'll never know. So, but that's just how the cycle of addiction was for me. I didn't make good decisions. I found out later on in life. I knew I was different. I knew something was wrong with me. I found out that I had bipolar type 2 disorder. And also, I feel that addiction was a way of self medicating for me, honestly. Um, when I know as far as me using, it was basically I used to feel something different. I always felt not the same, that I was different. I never kept the same group of friends. I mean, even today, I've got about 5 friends that have still been my friends and remain my friends since high school. And it's those type of friendships that, like, even though you don't talk every day, you know that they're always going to be there. And we will touch base with each other from time to time, whether it's through social media or whatever. And a lot of them, as we all know, they are addicts as well. They just haven't gotten there yet, or that's my opinion on it. So, but anyway, so I didn't. That relationship lasted till about the age of 19, and it became physical, and I left. Just pretty much walked in one day, waited till he wasn't there, grabbed what I could fit in my car, and I took off. I've always been a runner. When I get in a situation, I panic and I just run. I can't count the number of material items that I've just lost, including very unique art pieces, and that breaks my heart. But it was always I felt, to get out of a bad situation. And so I ended up, when I was 20, I got back into another abusive relationship with someone from my past, from high school, and I was kidnapped and tortured for 6 hours. I came near to death. I had my daughter with me, who was, she wasn't even quite 2 years old at the time. And I was literally at the mercy of this person, because I had to protect my daughter. And that's all I kept thinking. And so that it scared me, kind of made my addiction slow down just a little bit, because we was using together. And that's where I met my ex-husband of 9 years, was during that time, after all of that happened. And once again, looking for a protector. So it was a very quick relationship. I've always been one of these type of people that, I guess, I've always felt like I had to have a protector. And so that's actually where I found my DOC, my drug of choice.
Yeah.
He was an addict, and he introduced me to cocaine. And honestly, I can say from the first moment, I knew that I had a problem. I knew it was going to be a problem. I remember very early on thinking that I can't continue to do this, but I just couldn't stop. And I remember, because I pretty much left everything alone at that point, besides the alcohol and my DOC. And so I remember quite a few times, and he was someone that had a criminal history, and it became very abusive very quickly. But that was where I was able to continue to feed my habit. So of course, I didn't go anywhere. And we had 3 children together, 2 of which are living. One passed away at birth due
So
to
sorry to hear
a
that.
lot of abuse and trauma. Yeah. So, but during that time, I remember asking him early on, like, I think I've got a problem. I really don't want to continue to do this. I didn't know anything about addiction. I had no idea about a program. I knew nothing about treatment facilities. I didn't even know any of that existed. I thought, this is just something I'm going to have to do on my own. And he said, yeah, there's places you can go. And that's about as far as the conversation went. It was never brought up again. He never brought it up. I never made an initiative to go do anything. So I got pregnant, and I ended up having to have a medical abortion due to not being able to stop my drug use. And I remember it was at that point there, I felt like the most awful person in the world. Obviously, I wanted the baby because I already had a baby. It's always been my dream, the American dream, the family with, kids and your dogs, your pets, the white picket fence, the whole
Yeah,
big
that's exactly
fancy
what I was
house.
gonna say. The white picket fence.
Yes, yeah. So that was my dream. And I just felt like all my dreams were shattering. And so I remember praying to my higher power and saying, I'll never do this again. If you bless me with another child, I'll never do this again. And I was able to accumulate about 4.5 years clean on my own because I did keep my word on that. I was blessed with another child, and I immediately stopped using. I was like, I'm not going to do this again. I'm a very spiritual person. I wouldn't say religious, but I'm very spiritual. I do connect with my higher power a lot. I pray. I try to meditate. I stay in my literature. I stay in my basic text. I'm a step worker. I do my steps. I read the Just for Today daily meditation almost daily, and I refer to my basic text. And that's how I have gotten in a habit of reading my basic text and learning more about the program because I got clean for that 5 years. I was able to have three more children. So I've had six pregnancies total. So, but I was able to accumulate that 5 years. I had two more babies in between. And in that relationship, there was some infidelity. And I ended up, I relapsed. And so at that point there, I continued to use for probably about another 4.5, 5 years. And it started leading to a lot of legal trouble. And at that point there is when the judge was like, we've got to do something. Because I ended up with two charges within a 2-week period. Had an accident and got my second DUI, and I had blacked out at the wheel and hit a lady head on, and it almost killed her. And so that was my breaking point there. To me, that was my rock bottom at that time because I've had many rock bottoms. But that was my rock bottom at that time, and I knew I had to get some help. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay clean within that time period between 2006, between August of 2006 and 2009. I was able to accumulate, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 18 months, but that's as far as I could get. I relapsed during that period, ended up getting some more charges. So at that point there, here I am sitting with 3 felonies, none of which I've been convicted of yet. And I decided to put myself in drug court through the advice of my attorney. And so I entered into drug court. I was doing pretty good, that was when I was able to accumulate my 18 months and still just I couldn't stay clean. I remember relapsing multiple times during that time. And finally, my judge, she was fed up with me. So I did end up having to go do 3 years in a women's penitentiary. Excuse me, I had to take a drink. And then at that point there, that was where I was able to get the mental health treatment that I needed. And I was able to sit there for 3 years and really think about what it was I wanted for myself in my life. I had nothing. I'd lost everything, what little bit I did have that I hadn't run away from. I had left my ex-husband right before I'd gotten the DUI. I was thinking this is how I was going to get better. I was going to leave him. I didn't want to use anymore. I was begging him to stop bringing it home. If you would just quit bringing it home, I can stop. I know I can. And that was not the case. I just changed my DOC. It went to strictly alcohol. And to be honest with you, alcohol was the worst drug that I had been using because you want to get out and have fun. You think you can drive better. You think that, you're the life of the party, and it was legal. So I thought, well, as long as I just stick to alcohol, I'm not going to get in any trouble. As long as drug court doesn't breathalyze me in the middle of the night or they don't show up at my house, I'll be fine. And that wasn't the case. So needless to say, drug court, they ended up violating me, and I had to go do that time. And during that time, those 3 years, I have one brother, I have one sibling. He ended up committing suicide. And that was probably the breaking point for me. Um, I ended up on mental health watch for like 8 days. And I remember just sitting there in desperation, like, I pretty much spent a solid 8 days on my knees praying to my higher power, like, you've got to do something. I can't continue to live like this. My parents were raising my kids. Here I am. I'm in this prison life, and I'm not built for that. I'm just not. That's, to see me, if you were to see me, you would never know these things about me.
Right. Yeah.
And just the way that I live, the way that I present myself, my appearance, I do not look like someone who would be incarcerated. But that's what addiction does to us. So, luckily, by the grace of my higher power, I got in there. I did everything I was supposed to do. I completed several classes. I stayed in school the whole time. I attended church daily. I took some college courses. I took carpentry, horticulture. I mean, I was really doing good. And so I come home after 3 years, and like I said, I was able to accumulate those 15 years clean. And mind you, I did not go back to the program of Narcotics Anonymous immediately because, to be honest with you, I had this fear that if I went back to Narcotics Anonymous, I would get back in the same situations with men again. That was my biggest fear because I wasn't dating normal men. I was dating addicts. And I wasn't just dating addicts, I was dating newcomers. And that is something I cannot stress enough. It's very important. They tell us in the program not to date for your first year
The year is
clean.
over. Yeah.
And
But
I
I'm so glad
understand
you're hitting
that.
on this. Yes.
Yes, I very well understand that. And that's exactly why, and I've got a friend who shares a lot in meetings, and his quote is, two dead batteries don't make a good one. So, when I spoke one night about not coming back to NA right away, and that how, my fear was I was going to get with another addict and I was going to relapse because I went back probably about 3 years, about 3 or 4 years before my relapse, before I got my 15 years clean. And I relapsed on my clean date. Um, and I remember being at my 15-year celebration and not being clean and how bad that felt. But it had already been planned. I already had my speaker. I already had, the home group was ready for me to celebrate. It was already on the calendar. And that has also been my MO, is to write it out for a while and let everybody think that I'm still doing good
Fake it
before
until
I
you make
finally
it.
decide. Yes, fake it till you make it until I finally decide I'm ready to get honest. And I'm that type of person, dishonesty just eats at me, even though I might be doing what I think is right. The dishonesty over time just eats away at me and I can't take it. So I finally had to get honest with my sponsor pretty much shortly after my celebration. I hope she doesn't hear this, but I'm sure she'll probably end up watching this. I remember the day of my celebration, I lied to her and I told her that I was still clean. And I still have not gotten honest with her and told her that no, that's not true, because I don't want to break her heart and I don't want to
No,
hurt her
I know.
feelings.
And that feeling is the worst when you gotta hide that
Yes.
you're not sober. To a sober community, I mean, that is the worst feeling I can never explain.
It is, and I am gonna get clean with her about that. I'm gonna let her know that I had actually relapsed on my clean date, and basically what led me to get my bed because I ended up going to detox. I needed to go back for my mental health as well because at that point, and I cannot stress mental health enough. I don't think we talk about it enough in the program, and it specifically in the literature talks about taking care of your mental health. And that's very important to me because when my mental health is not healthy and when I'm not healthy mentally, that's when I start seeking and reaching out for things to make me feel different. And that is typically when I relapse. And my medication I felt like wasn't working anymore. So I had stopped taking my medication altogether. And that's when I relapsed. And that's also been my MO. That's always been my go-to thing. And I should have just did what was suggested of me and what a normal person would do. But as addicts, we're not normal and we don't think normal. So I should have just called my doctor and been like, hey, this is not working. I've been on this medication for so long. I really think I need to change. Something's different. So I had fell into a state of depression and I just, and I had come off supervision. I spent 15 years on supervision. I walked it out, never went back. And I also feel like when I went back and reworked my steps, when it come to that first step, I missed something. And I had an aha moment here, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago where I missed a reservation, and that reservation was, well, when I'm off parole, I don't have to worry about getting drug tested. What would it be like just one last time to be able to use? I wonder if I can handle it this time. I wonder if I've got it under control. And I realized shortly into my relapse, I will never have it under control. Now,
Oh
was I
yeah.
able
What do they
to?
say? What do they say? One is
One is
not
too
enough.
many, yeah, one's too many, and 1,000 is never
Yes,
enough.
that is
And
exactly right.
yeah, and I was able to actually not do as much or get as bad as I had in the past just because in my mind I knew that every time I relapse, it ends in new charges. And I'm like, right now, I'm good. I have no new charges as long as I don't drink and drive, as long as I don't get too drunk, as long as I don't do too much, because I did end up going back to my drug of choice for a brief period. And I had an incident happen and it brought back 20 years of trauma that I had shoved down and down and down. And I actually had been at my father-in-law, my son-in-law's father's house. Him and I are still really good friends. And I was there and, my daughter and him try to co-parent, and that was a good co-parenting spot. And so he's one of us. He's an addict as well. And he had relapsed. And there was an incident that occurred that day where I had to pretty much step in and protect the whole family because he was in the middle of a drunken rage. And I had to step in and pretty much protect everybody. And that brought back that whole 20 years of trauma that I had shoved down. And that's why I want to stress the importance of taking care of your mental health and dealing with whatever it is you have not dealt with. That is very imperative because it's just going to keep coming up and coming up and coming up until you eventually are going to have to do something about it, whether it's relapse or you get yourself in a situation like I did, or you end up in a mental institution somewhere. So after that, the trauma just come full on. And I think that was one of the reasons why, after I had relapsed, that I went so bad back into it because I felt like such a terrible person. I was like, this person showed herself again. I'll call that's my other personality, the one that I never wanted to see again because a lot of my charges are their physical assault charges. And so that's when I knew that that trauma was coming up. And I finally called my sponsor and I got honest with her and I told her, I said, hey, I've relapsed. Yes, I am going to do something about it. So about 2 weeks into my relapse, I got a bed date. I was like, I can't continue to do this. And it took me 2 weeks to get in. So all in all, I used for like 25 days, but grateful enough to know that it was going to end bad. It was going to end badly. It always does. And so I'm just grateful that I had enough recovery in my life and that I'd had that 15 years clean and I'd been through enough, with the incarcerations, with losing family members, with, my children during my relapse were calling every day, begging, Mom, please get help. You can come live with us. You can do this. You can do that. But my recovery is my responsibility. It's no one else's. And I knew that I had to do this myself. And it just feels like such a big accomplishment to know that I was able to do something about it. So I got my bed date. I ended up going for mental health and substance abuse. I had to go detox, obviously, because I'd gotten back to where I was drinking every day. As a matter of fact, the day that I went into detox, I remember chugging a big can, and I probably sat out in the lobby maybe 20 minutes. And by the time that they breathalyzed me, my alcohol level was at zero again. So it had gotten to that point where, it wasn't even giving me a buzz. So I knew that I had come at the right time. So, but just grateful to be clean and grateful for the program of Narcotics Anonymous. And the whole point of it is you can't just do one without having the other. You've got to work a full program and you've got to work it daily. You've got to attend meetings. You've got to be in contact with your sponsor. You've got to work the steps. You've got to believe in a higher power, whatever that higher power be. I know early on in the program, a lot of the newcomers, a lot of people can't get with the concept of God. So, and I also sponsored girls. I was a sponsor, and I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. So I'm also in a sponsorship tree. And I'm going to get back active in the program. I was very active in the program before, and that's another big thing. You've got to do service work. But another reason that I had relapsed as well is I basically had stopped working a program. I'd stopped doing all of those things. And that there is like, if I ever get myself in a situation where I'm not doing all those things, then I know that's big red flag. And that's just always been my history with it, is if I stop attending meetings, I stop calling my sponsor, I'm not associating with other people in the program and doing my step work, then I need to do something very quickly, because if not, I know where it's always going to lead back to. So, but that's kind of my story. I don't know how long I've been on here.
No,
If
you've
that's
done
enough time.
you did amazing. So let me just go with some follow-up questions because I mean,
Yes,
you've
absolutely.
literally hit on every single point that I like to hear about, and I your story is amazing. So after being clean 15 years and then relapsing, tell me about those feelings because a lot of people think, well, I relapsed, I lost all the knowledge I had, I lost all these things, but there's a lot of shame, guilt that comes by
Yes,
relapsing, but it's not the end of the road. It just means you're needing more recovery. Tell me about those
it's
feelings.
not. Yeah, very much so. You do feel a lot of shame, guilt, remorse. I felt all of those things. I felt it from the first drink. Because like I said, it started with drinking and then eventually led to my drug of choice. And, it led back to my drug of choice as quickly as 2 weeks into it. So, when they say that we always pick up where we leave off, that has always played out for me. And, but they say in our basic text, there's no shame in relapse. The shame is not doing something about it. And so I had highlighted that in my basic text, and I was looking back to my basic text, and I remembered seeing that, and I'm like, that was just my confirmation that, hey, you need to do something, because that honestly is what kept me from also going back quicker than what I did. Was, the shame, the guilt, and the remorse from, ending up incarcerated in the first place, not working the program to my best ability. And I thought, I can't go back and face these people. I'm so embarrassed. But fortunately for me, my experience has been, anytime that I've relapsed and come back,
They're there with
they're
open
all,
arms.
yes,
Every single
yes,
one of them.
every
That's
single
one thing I would
time.
love people to understand, that just because relapse happened or because you're using does not mean any of those people are shunning you. Nothing like that. They are the most loving people in the program and recovery.
N-
Just come back. That's
Absolutely,
all we need you
absolutely.
to do is come back.
There's a there's actually an old timer. His name is Gus, and he unfortunately he can't attend like he used to because he's getting on up there in age. And I remember the first meeting I saw him at, he was like, "Well, damn, how much time did they give you? 20 years?" And I was like, no, I was only locked up for 3 years. And he's like, well, where have you been? And I told him, I said, Gus, I burned a lot of bridges. I was embarrassed. I hurt a lot of people. I was like, I was too embarrassed to come back. And he was like, don't you ever. He was like, you were very lucky. You were very lucky that you were one of the fortunate ones that was able to make it back because the drugs that we have out there today are not like they were 20 years ago. One hit, one pill it can kill you. And that's also scary. Back when I did pick my DOC up, I remember doing just a very little bit because I thought I've got to test this first. I don't know what I'm getting. And that's the harsh reality of it. The next one could be your last one.
Yeah, and that's our minds too, is well, I can do just a little bit, and that's just so dangerous nowadays because of that. So let me ask you this. I'm really glad you hit on, you said you were maybe a little bipolar, which, um, so how do you feel with asking for help for medications when you have been in addiction before?
Um, well, like I said, I mean, these symptoms have been presenting themselves from childhood. And I was so embarrassed to admit that I had a problem. Inactive addiction and out of active addiction because, even being clean, because during that 5 year period that I was able to get clean on my own, before I found the program, I had family members, I had friends that were like, maybe you need to go see a therapist. Maybe you need to be on medication. There's something wrong with you. And I remember being so angry and just thinking to myself, how dare you tell me there's something wrong with me? Like maybe you need to take a look at yourself. And so it took me up until I was in my late 20s to ask for help when it comes to my mental health. So it was embarrassing. It really was. But today I have no problem asking for medication because, history has repeated itself. And I can see that vicious cycle of my mental health along with my addiction.
Oh yeah, that is
So
100%. So just also hitting on codependency, that's an issue that we don't talk about enough. It does tie in with the whole mental health and addiction. Our codependency is a root of it. What would you say to someone about codependency and addiction?
codependency of addiction, like as far as being codependent on drugs
Both
or as
to
far as,
both to someone who is maybe in addiction and it's hard for them to
oh
get clean
gosh,
because you love this
yes,
person, but you don't want to.
to be honest, I mean, you've got to put yourself a priority. Your addiction is your response. I mean, your recovery is your responsibility, and you can't depend on another person to do it for you. And, I tried for so many years. Like I said, I was with my ex-husband for 9 years, and he would literally tell me, I'm not going to stop. I'll be an old man on a walker sitting in a rocking chair and still getting high. So if you're waiting on me to stop, then you're never going to get clean. So, I knew that I had to get out of that relationship. I mean, that's just the bottom line of it. No matter how much you love a person or care about your person, that person, you've got to care about yourself more. You've just got to. Because if I'm not clean and I'm not who I need to be, I can't be there for anybody else. And that's the bottom line on that. When it comes to my children, my grandchildren, my parents, I remember being in prison and telling myself, I'm never going to come back to this place because losing my brother in a situation like that. And I blamed myself for a lot of years thinking, if I had been there, because I was the only person in my family that he could talk to openly and honestly about his mental health issues, because he suffered from mental health issues as well. And I blamed myself for many years for that. And I remember telling myself, if anything happens to anybody else in my family, I want to be there. I want to be of service to them. I want to be able to help. And luckily, my father, he passed away at 70 years old. He became bedridden for 22 months. And I was proudly able to be here for him and help him when he couldn't help himself. And so, had I not been clean, he wouldn't have had that help. And so that's the bottom line. You've got to, people say it's a selfish program, but really, my sponsors explained it to me. It's a selfless program because if we don't take care of self, we definitely can't take care of anybody else.
Wow, I truly love that. Wow. Well, that is amazing. So, just one final thought for somebody struggling out there who perhaps just got introduced into drug court, which is a great program. What would you say to someone that keeps relapsing? Just any thoughts that would help them?
Um, to be honest, I have a sponsee who is currently, well, she was my sponsee. I'm not I have enough clean time right now to sponsor again, but she still calls me. She still, honestly, I fired her, but she hasn't fired me. So she is in drug court, and you've just got to ask for help. You've got to be honest with them. If you keep relapsing, you need to go to your coordinator or your case manager and be like, hey, I cannot stop and I want to succeed. I want to complete this. I wish that I had went to someone because yes, you're going to get sanctioned. You may get set back, you may get phased down or whatever, but they are there to help you and they will help you. I mean, I'm experiencing it with her. She has been a chronic relapser and they're giving her, this is probably like her third chance, and she was finally was just like, just put me in jail, let me do my time. And they was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to try to get you some help. We want you to get clean. We don't want to see you in jail. We want to see you clean.
You
And
know,
so
yeah.
you may be scared, but you'll never know unless you ask for help. What's the harm in asking?
No, you're very
You're
right.
eventually going to get you're eventually going to get sanctioned or get violated in the end if you continue to use. So what's the harm in asking?
Correct. And I've seen drug court work. It's a magic through our program where I work, just healing thousands of people every day. And it's just when they get vulnerable enough to say, hey, I can't do this anymore. So I
Yeah,
love the program myself. I've never been in it, but
yeah.
I've had the chance to work with drug court a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, a lot of people they get scared. It's out of fear. And this is in our basic text as well. Fear is a lack of faith. You've got to keep that faith that eventually you're going to get clean. But if you don't ask for the help, you're not going to receive it.
You're very right. I love hearing testimonies because to every person, there's just one little thing that you're going to get out of people's testimonies. And for you today, I could say I have a new little quote: two dead batteries don't make a good one. I am going to take that down
Exactly.
forever now.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Like I said, that's one thing I like about the meetings and the program is you hear their little cliche, quotes, but hey, it works. Keep it simple.
Cliches are cliche for a reason. That's my little cliche.
What is it?
Cliches are cliche for a reason. They
Exactly.
No, well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your testimony. And like I said, you had the honor of being the first female to share on the podcast, which I hope opens the door and makes more comfortability for others to share. I know that I'm definitely have a
Absolutely.
couple more scheduled, but maybe now this will break the ice for over the phone interviews because I've done Ohio, Florida, now Kentucky. It's really amazing to hear
Yes.
it working all over the states.
Yes, and thank you so much for asking me. And I just want to say, I'm grateful to be clean today, and I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be able to do this. They say it's a two-way street, and that's what we're supposed to do here as addicts is be of service and share our testimony, even if it just helps one person or touches one person. And that's been my main goal and my main focus for quite some time.
And that is so perfectly put because that is what this podcast is about. I opened it in a way to help the clients here open up and be able to share their testimony in a correct form. And it's just opened up into me, sharing just a little bit with other people over just social media now. And it's doing its job, it's helping the person
Yes,
talking and it's helping me along the way. So I love that you put it
absolutely.
that way.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of iSober. We hope today's story has brought you hope, encouragement, and a reminder that recovery is possible. No matter where you are on your journey, remember that you are not alone. Keep reaching out, keep showing up, and keep taking it life one day at a time. If you're interested in sharing your experience, strength, and hope in the future, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out and help us carry the message to the next person who may be struggling. Until next time, stay grateful, stay connected, and stay sober. Keep coming back.